How's it going, everyone? I was in the middle of editing this episode and I just wanted to jump in real fast and address the elephant, or rather I should say dog, that was in the room with us. Especially towards the tail end of this podcast, you can really hear Midnight Mocha snoring. So if you're listening to the show and you hear any sort of oinking or snorting, just know that there's a precious, adorable dog sleeping right in between me and Miles on the couch, and it comes in rather strong. So I just wanted to throw that out there right at the beginning of the episode so you have a fair warning when that comes. And also there's a pretty long intro on this episode as well, so just fair warning, very long-winded intro, but I feel it really sets the tone for the subject matter of what we're talking about today. But yeah, I just wanted to address the snoring that I found while I was editing this episode, and without further ado, let's just get to the show. How's it going, everyone, and welcome to the final episode of Buddy's House of Horror podcast of 2021. It's been a while. I haven't released an episode of the show since October, and I wanted to have at least one more episode come out before the end of the year, because I can't leave you guys hanging like that. I know October is a big time for Buddy's House of Horror, but I like my show to be enjoyed all year round because I enjoy making my show all year round. And so this week, we're going to be ending 2021 on a great note and talking about probably the film that has influenced me the most from a filmmaking perspective. And you've read the title, but I'm still just gonna hype it up a little bit before I say what it is. But before we do that, I've had a really great day so far. Woke up early, laundry needed done, leaves needed to get raked, coffee needed to get drank. I've switched to Christmas coffees now. I know I was on the spooky coffee train last time you guys have heard from me, but it's a new time of year. This is sort of the pseudo Thanksgiving, Christmas, midway, happy holidays, all-encompassing special, Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate. This is the holiday special of the year. I originally wanted to release this episode in the weeks leading up to Thanksgiving, or maybe on Thanksgiving week itself, but I decided, you know what, people are going to be around their families around Thanksgiving. They're going to be around their families around Christmas time. So why don't I have sort of like a happy medium? Why don't I release this episode some point in between the two main American holidays that the most people celebrate? And do it a little bit before Christmas, maybe the week before Christmas, 2 weeks before. Not exactly sure when I'm going to be releasing it, but I'm going to be releasing it at the perfect time for me, because that's what really matters. I don't want to drive myself crazy. I really wanted to attack the day today and take advantage of every single minute of the day. As I said, I had a lot of things going on this morning. I'm actually cooking a pot of chicken-less noodle soup, a vegetarian chicken noodle soup I'm cooking right now. And I'm just really trying to get stuff done today. Very similar to the subject of today's episode, someone who really likes to take advantage of every waking minute to really attack the day and get things done. And now this episode of Buddy's House of Horror podcast is very different in nature from other episodes that we've done of the House of Horror. I really love, it's a guilty pleasure of mine. I don't even want to call it a guilty pleasure. One of my favorite genres of film are movies about making movies. And although Buddy's House of Horror is a show about horror films, the main film we're talking about today is not a horror film, but it is horror adjacent. This could be considered an episode of underrated films because both of the films we talk about are underrated films. But this episode is sort of more of a like a before and after type of show, which is unlike anything we've done or talked about on the House of Horror before, which is why I was really excited to do this episode. I'm mainly recording this intro because within the episode itself, I didn't really do a good job introducing either of the films we're talking about. So I wanted to take this opportunity to introduce the films that we are talking about. And of course, as I mentioned, you guys have read the title, so you know we are talking about American Movie Man, one of my favorite films of all time. And on the back end of the show, we're going to be talking about Coven, which is the film that American Movie was about making Coven. So we're going to be watching the film about the film that they were making, and then watching the film itself. So we'll start with American Movie for now, and then I will do an intro to Coven when we're about to talk about Coven. But just to talk about American Movie a little bit, I've talked about it on other shows, but just in case you've never heard of American Movie before, I'll just back up a little bit. It's from 1999. It's a documentary film following two filmmakers primarily, mainly just Mark Borchardt and his duo, his partner in crime, Mike Shank, who has a little bit of a lesser role, but I still consider them a duo. A very good duo, one of the best film duos of all time, and they're real people, they're not even characters. But Mark Borchardt, one of my biggest film influences. I see so much of myself in this guy, in this film, and this film is just a beautiful film. I love everything about it. And just to give you the Letterboxd description, American Movie is the story of filmmaker Mark Borchardt, his mission, and his dream. Spanning over 2 years of intense struggle with his film, his family, financial decline, and spiritual crisis, American Movie is a portrayal of ambition, obsession, excess, and one man's quest for the American dream. I'll go to IMDb too, because this film deserves more than one synopsis. I love this film so much, you deserve 3. I'll give you the Letterboxd, IMDb's regular, and then another synopsis that is on IMDb, because I see they actually have 2 synopses right now. So number 1, documentary about an inspiring filmmaker. Wow, I messed that up. Documentary about an aspiring filmmaker's attempts to finance his dream project by finally completing the low-budget horror film he abandoned years before. And then written by Jay Haley. This description: on the northwest side of Milwaukee, Mark Borchardt dreams the American dream. For him, it's making movies. Using relatives, local theater talent, slacker friends, his MasterCard, and $3,000 from his Uncle Bill, Mark strives over 3 years to finish Coven, a short horror film. His own personal demons, alcohol, gambling, a dysfunctional family plague him, but he desperately wants to overcome self-doubt and avoid failure. In moments of reflection, Mark sees his story as quintessentially American, and its nature and nuance of his dream that his film explores. I really, really love this film. I know I've said that a million times, but this has to be in my top 3 to 5 films of all time. I love the messages behind this film. I love the determination that you see in this film. And I just find it incredibly relatable. I mean, as a filmmaker myself, I've made tons of films back in the day, you know, recruiting family members, just kids on the neighborhood street, just anyone you can get to act. And I know from my personal experiences how hard it really is to make a film, whether it's on a small indie scale like this, a medium sort of type scale like my student films that I made in college, and even on like big budget stuff when I was a PA on some films that were shooting in the Cleveland area. Just seeing film from so many different perspectives really makes you appreciate the humble nature of what American Movie is. And of course, a million things go wrong in the film. I of course encourage all of you to see the film. But we'll get into that in a little bit. I'm going to introduce the film to Miles, give him an intro on the film, surprise him with what we're talking about because he had no idea what the episode was going to be about. And this film is everything. It was the disaster artist before the disaster artist. It's a little bit Trailer Park Boys, a little bit Fargo, a little bit Letterkenny. It's part Ed Wood, it's part Spinal Tap. It's just great in the best way possible. Again, I love everything about this film. It's very humble. It was directed by a guy named Chris Smith, who's probably most notably known now for directing the Firefest documentary for Netflix, and he was also a producer on the illustrious series, maybe you've heard about it, Tiger King. He was a producer on Tiger King, but he started with American Movie, which was back in Milwaukee in the 90s. This film isn't exactly, this episode of the show isn't exactly a review of the film, it's more of a reaction. I've never watched this film with anyone else before, so I was really curious on what someone from an outside perspective would really think about it. At some point in the future, I would love to do like a full in-depth retrospective and film analysis on the film of Mark, of American Movie and Coven at some point in the future. So if that's something you guys want to see, I would definitely want to do that. But I just really wanted to see what Miles thought about the film, because he wants to start making films with me. So I sort of wanted to show him this, just because it's a film that's very close to me, and it's a lot of how I approach making a film. Are the things that Mark does in this. And I just love it. I love everything about this film. So I'm just going to shut up and we're going to get right to the episode. Again, I will come in again before the Coven segment and give a little bit of an introduction to Coven. But for right now, grab your lottery tickets, crack open a can of Surge, sit back, relax, and enjoy American Movie on Buddy's House of Horror podcast. Now let's get spooky.
I don't know what we're watching or what we're doing this week, so you better lead me in, brother.
It's been a while.
It's been
a while since we've done one of the. It feels like it's been weeks since I've seen you.
It's only been 2 weeks. I know, Bunny. I was thinking today. I was driving over. I was like,
you've got a mustache right now. I'm just noticing that.
Yeah, it's. I'm growing it out for No Shave November. It's. I'm bringing back. This is Revenge of the Mustache Part 3. This is my third mustache attempt in my life. I had one for a year at one, almost a full year at one point. I drove school bus at this point, so think how creepy that was as a 23-year-old man with a mustache.
Driving
the school bus. Just think about that. But yeah, my girlfriend Marissa, Midnight Marissa, I guess, was her code name, whatever. Her stage name. She wanted to see the mustache. She likes mustaches, I guess. And so she's into it. So here I am. We're working on it.
You've had an eventful few weeks, my man.
Have
Mocha's birthday, your birthday's coming up. This is probably going to be like your birthday show. It'll probably come out the week of your birthday, probably.
Show?
Well, no, that's not officially your birthday show, but it might be coming out around the same time as your birthday. But I want to talk about something very exciting that's happened in your life. You inspire, but Miles, a connoisseur.
I don't even
listen.
I don't even know what's going on. Okay,
a connoisseur of two things very near and dear to Miles's heart. Beer and crossfade. You inspired a let's Can you tell the story? Because I'm genuinely curious about what's going on with this.
So, let's try to give a little bit of backstory. That's what we're doing. So my friend owns a brewery in Ashtabula, Ohio, which is an hour east of Cleveland. It's 45 minutes west of Erie, Pennsylvania. For any of the people that are regional listeners, it's called Clovenhoof Brewing. Really, honestly, really, really good beer. I know everyone says that about their friend stuff, but I've went to breweries in California, I've went to breweries in New York, and everywhere in between. And honestly, he's really good at what he does. He actually is going into the biology and the chemistry of brewing and stuff, and has gotten like really detailed into it. He knows what he's doing. He uses a lot of real ingredients, not adjuncts or extracts. So,
not a sponsor of the House of Horror, but he can be.
He can be. He should be. But Clovenhoof Brewing, great spot, really good people that all work there. I've known most of them for quite some time. So, Spaz and me have been in 2 weddings the past year, and the bachelor parties and everything in between. We were already close, but we've joked about here. We've watched the band Crossfade,
the most legendary music video of all time.
Most legendary hard rock band of all time, way above Nickelback for anyone that's listening. But the video is called It's So Cold, right? Or is it Far Away?
I think the song's just called Cold. But it could be called So Cold.
I think it might be called So Cold. I don't know. Either way. But if anyone hasn't seen that music video, just go on YouTube right now.
It's just cold, straight into the point. Yeah.
All right. I should have known that because it's a hard rock song. They can't use more than one word for any fucking song title. But we've joked about it here, and when I've been hanging out with him, I'll look at him. We'll be talking, and I'll just sing the lyrics at the beginning of the song. You know, everyone, if they know the song, that whole like looking back at me, and like that whole fucking that whole thing right there. So I would do that. We'll be in the middle of something serious, and I've made him watch the music video multiple times when we're in public situations, which is very funny. And
how many? We've watched that video at this house many times.
I've made him watch that video when he was like almost asleep drunk. I just like crawled next to him and like turned the video on and started singing it at him. So we've had some moments, and he decided he's like I'm gonna make a beer for us, and I said okay, and then he ended up telling me, and I was like, oh, it's like almost like a tropical like IPA kind of. With a lot of fruits, almost like pina colada is kind of what he's going for. And he's like, well, I'm going to use a few of the phrases we've talked about or thrown at each other all the times we've been hanging out for these weddings and stuff. And I said, okay. And then he ended up using "Look It Back at Me" is what it's called. So I was very flattered. He tagged me on the post, and Spaz is a very good person, and I love him, and I'm excited. I'm going to go try the beer next week, actually. Probably like a week from Saturday.
Yeah, pretty close to your birthday, and you had brought up that you'll find, because people have been asking about this constantly. The bug situation with the PlayStation. They have not. Everyone knows the story.
Don't work the crowd, but anyways.
Everyone's been asking, when's he going to get this PS3? When's he getting this PS3 back? You've acquired a PS3.
Well, let's put it this way. I cashed in my cash rewards on my credit card, which is the thing when you're a fucking adult.
You got some frequent flyer miles and shit?
No, but essentially my cash back. And so what I did as a smart adult, I put some into my savings that I've been draining all year, and then I did the other smart thing as an adult and bought myself a birthday present. And I ended up getting a PS3 20% off. And it was a 320 gig, so I ended up with like tax. It was like 310 or not 110 or some like insanely cheap price for like
a console
for like a decent, especially now with like the retro quote unquote like the prices for everything. So, I'm stoked because I'm looking back at my game list. Everything's logged. I mean, I just downloading
back at me,
looking back at myself, looking back at me. I downloaded all the Resident Evils. Thank God I have 1 through 4 or 5 plus Veronica and everything on one console again. So I'm ready to get back playing those. A bunch of my like PlayStation and PS2 RPGs and stuff too. Just those are games that I grew up with that I adore, and one that I've talked about here. It's nice to have Deadly Premonition again on a console. So
gotta get the Switch next for Shin Megami Tensei is coming out like this week or something crazy, and Deadly Premonition 2 is already out. Speaking of Resident Evil, I'm getting scared, Kat, because I'm outside of the mansion right now. And
he's talking about the Resident Evil remake. For
Resident Evil remake, I've been playing through it. I should be streaming it. I don't know why the fuck I'm not streaming it.
We should be playing it right now. We should actually be doing the podcast while doing this intro, but I feel like maybe that'd be too much. Yeah. I don't know.
But up until this point, I felt relatively safe inside the house. I mean, I know where I'm going. I know where the safe rooms are. Now I'm outside, and I'm just nervous that I'm going to be stuck outside with no resources. So I'm going to need you to back me up at some point.
Oh, my God. He had to call in the Resident Evil expert to help him with this. So I'm always down for that call. I've helped Dynamite Jared a couple times, whether he admits it or not. So I'll watch anyone play horror games.
Yeah.
I'm getting ready for quote unquote this live stream. I've gotten multiple games lined up for it if I'm gonna do it. I mean,
we're gonna do it. We just gotta figure out a good weekend where we're all free. We've all been very busy. You were talking about you got like 6 shows in a row you're going to.
I honestly have almost the rest of this entire year Saturday night wise planned. Like I'd have to. No, I'm teasing. I'm like, but I'd have to do it on like a Friday into a Sunday. Or I'd have to like honestly like you guys would have to be in the middle of it, and I'd just walk in and be like, "Hey, what's up, guys?" and like fucking do it, and then like leave or come back or something. But
yeah, we're gonna have to figure it out. I don't know when. Probably over Jared's Christmas break or something, honestly, because you know how he is with his homework. But none of that's why we're here today. We're doing. I I don't know if we're going to call this underrated films. This might be something, because this is going to be very unlike anything we've ever reviewed on the show before, talked about on the show before.
Okay.
And you were part of the inspiration for why I wanted to do this, because as the listeners know, we're both quote-unquote filmmakers. And we've been talking about maybe some ideas bouncing back and forth, trying to get some sort of film together, potentially someday. So
I did throw that idea out there last time we saw each other. Because I've had some ideas. So
I thought it would be very interesting to watch this film with you, just because it was very integral to my filmmaking background.
Okay.
And I'm also very excited to be doing this on the show, because what we're going to be watching is not a horror film, but it's horror adjacent.
Okay.
I've talked about this film many times. Honestly, like, this film is like, I don't want to hype it up too much for you, but this is probably like in my top 5 films like ever. Like, not horror films, not nothing.
Okay.
My wife might know what I'm talking about. But it's a film about making a film. So Miles is very confused right now. Do you have any idea what I'm talking about at all? I don't even know if you've heard of this film besides maybe things I've talked about.
Okay. Let's see.
Should I just whip it out?
Or throw it out. Put it on the table, brother.
All right. So it's actually Veterans Day. Veterans are very American. This has nothing to do with veterans, but it has to do with America. We're going to be watching...
I already think I know what this is.
American movie.
Okay, that's what I thought. As soon as you said America, I was like, all right.
The American Dream. This is the American movie about the shooting of Northwestern. And I think you're going to be into this because you love Letterkenny. You love Trailer Park Boys.
Yeah.
This, in the best way possible, this is a real-life version of characters you'd probably see on a show like that.
Okay, thank God.
In the best way possible.
I mean, I've read about this before, and you've talked about it briefly. I read online about it, and then before I knew you were into it, and then you spoke about it a couple times.
So it is a documentary, but it feels like a film, and it's hard to believe that some of this shit isn't scripted. Like, the lines in this film, it's some of, like, the most iconic lines. Like, you've heard me say shit from this movie, even if you didn't know it was, like, from this movie. The most quotable film of all time, as it's been called. I'm excited to watch this. It's been a few years since I've watched it. You've never seen it?
No, I've read about it before, but like I said, and I know you've talked about it in front of me before, so as soon as you said America, I was like, I know where we're going now. It's good because I've kind of been in like a documentary or like a faux documentary mood because I finally watched The Last Blockbuster the other night. Have you watched that yet?
It's a very strange film. Like
this film? Okay.
No, in The Last Blockbuster.
Yeah,
like the humor in it is very like they tried to make it very trendy.
It's good though. I like all the actors and all the people they got in who worked at Blockbuster back in the day and the pictures and like the way it's done. I really enjoyed it. I really had a good time. Really liked it.
Yeah, it was a good film. I watched it in March. I watched it around my birthday.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know what else to say about the film. I'm excited to hear your reaction to it on the other side.
First watch.
Yeah. So without further ado, we're just gonna watch the film.
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Are you tired of plain old breakfast? Sure is not sugary enough.
Are you tired of burnt pancakes and waffles?
Then you need slapjacks. To slap against your face and cause a chemical reaction to heat up.
No cooking required, just slap and eat. Don't believe us? Here's a satisfied customer. Slapjacks are the best breakfast food ever made. Slapjacks, slap those smiles back.
You heard it here, kids. Slapjack saves lives. Order at www.slapjacks.com.
Well, Miles has been transported into a different universe right now. Probably the most Midwestern film of all time, wouldn't you say?
Honestly, this is the most Midwest thing I've ever seen. That's not necessarily where I wanted to start after watching this, but I would say this is probably one of the best things I've watched in 2021. All the Green Bay Packers merch, all the old Oldsmobile cars that just scream the Midwest for some reason to me.
You were talking a lot about the merch. You got the tie-dye Rush shirt.
Yeah, I mean the one guy is straight out of the late 70s, even though this says it came out in the 90s. It's almost like their parents were like the final hippies. And they just kind of like maybe got the cool Spencer's merch back in the day before Spencer's sucked. But very much the most Midwestern film of all time. Them in the snow. There's like melted like snowbanks. Very key late 80s, early 90s cars.
The PBR in the freezer.
There's a PBR in the freezer. All the Green Bay Packers merch and everything that was going on in the background. I don't know. It just seemed like... I don't even know what to say. I don't know. You should take the lead on this one.
I just want to reassure to you that this was all 100% real.
This can't... There's no way this film was real.
It was real. Well, I don't know the full backstory of how it got started, but basically they were like in that college or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. One of the film students there like met them and basically was like, these guys are fucking hilarious. I want to start shooting them. They're making a movie. I'm going to like document like what's going on. So the guy who made this film was a student at that school at the time and was just documenting them trying to make Northwestern, which, spoiler alert, if you've seen, Northwestern still has not been made.
Okay. That's what I figured.
Yeah.
That $50,000 that he took, spoiler, from his dead uncle, it never happened.
That film, at least, yeah.
Which is insane, because he had all the ideas and shot part of it. Oh my God.
What'd you think of the film?
I thought it was, I hate to use the word masterpiece, but kind of, it's like, it's such a time capsule. Like, I feel like I got transported back to my very early childhood. And, like, I don't think I was around people like these when I was a child. I can't even speak anymore. I actually lost the last 5 brain cells I had watching this, but in the best way possible. But it kind of reminds me of some of like being up in like Michigan, because my mom's family's from Michigan, seeing some people that look like this, especially like way up there, and this was in Milwaukee or whatever, and just that like deep north Midwest kind of just weirdo shit, like, but it just reminded me of being a kid, because I was born in the 80s, grew up in the 90s, and it feels older. Like you said, this came out in 99. It was like...
Came out in 99, but it was, like, the footage was from, like, 95 to 97.
Yeah, and even that, I guess because I feel like probably being in the Midwest, it takes a few years for things to catch up to the rest of society. It looked like 1989. Like nothing. This didn't scream.
Except the Pocahontas shirt.
The Pocahontas shirt, yes, was what that's what threw it all off. The Pocahontas shirt, but it was very much a much appreciated time capsule. I really did like it. It was hilarious, beyond hilarious. Incredible.
To me, like, just from like my filmmaking background, it's probably like the most relatable film of all time. Just like from my perspective, I guess, because like I like just watching it, like I think of how many times I've made a film, all the extras bail, you gotta call in your mom to help out and like shit like that, and just hanging out with your friends and I don't know, shooting films is the American dream, man. That's what he talks about several times in the film. I don't know. It's a weird film to talk about. It's like an experience, and I'm like,
it really was, to be honest. I mean, there's always these kind of films out there that you think not that you haven't seen everything, but you've seen a lot, and you get. This whole conversation sounds generic as I'm talking about, but you get like I don't use the word jaded, but you've seen a lot, you've read about a lot, whatever. And then the best part of watching films or getting introduced to things is the one random night where someone's like, hey, I want you to see this. And then you watch it and you're like, wow, I was moved. That was insane. Like, and like it just was really probably was one of the best things I've seen this year because it was so different, so fun, and so unique in so many different ways.
Yeah. And, like, some people, like, as far as, like, the film in general, like, as a film, like, some people have, like, critiques about it that I've, like, seen online. I was like, oh, it's, like, being exploitive, and they're basically just, like, making fun of these people. But the way I see it is, like, you're kind of, like, laughing with them rather than at them. Because, I mean, like, when Mark's saying this shit, like, he knows the shit he's saying is, like, funny. Like the scene where it's like, oh, it's an unnatural cross or whatever. He's like, you think when Jesus was hanging there, he thought it was natural? Just, like, shit like that.
I think that guy, especially because right before we did this, I looked up his Instagram, and I think he's, like, insanely self-aware. More so than probably his friends, his family. Like, I kind of think he's just like, fuck it, I'm an insane drunk maniac who wants to make films, but I have 4 kids and I don't know what to do, and I don't really want to live by society's conventions and standards. Where almost like he's making fun of himself and all of his surroundings, but he doesn't really want to escape it because he loves how charming it is to him, or how, like, funny it is to him, or how the mundane in the Midwest is just so hilarious to him. Like, his friends, the aspect, like, every little aspect. Like, he seemed like he was just like, fuck it, I'm having a blast being filmed.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell that they're having fun the whole time. And, of course, the whole movie isn't funny. Like, there's sadness with it. There's struggles that he goes through in it. But a lot of it does play out like a comedy. And as I said, it's, like, weird that it's unscripted because it's just, like, the stuff in it is, like, how could you write that? Like, some of the, like, the one-liners in that are just hysterical. The one that got you and, like, you missed, like, 5-10 minutes of the film just because you were laughing when he was, like, suck down peppermint schnapps and try to call Morocco at 2 a.m.
That, I don't know why, but that absolutely slayed. Just the fact you just fucked up drinking peppermint schnapps. And he's calling hotels in Morocco, which I don't even know how you fucking get. This is pre-internet, really. I mean, the internet's around a little bit, but how you find numbers to hotels in Morocco, even if he was lying, it was still the most random and funny. Like, that was one of the best laughs I've had this year. I don't know why, but I kind of have a strange sense of humor. Like, I can watch something that's supposed to be funny, I won't laugh almost at all, and then someone hits me with that one line or that one moment, and I just can't control myself, man. I just lose it.
Emily, what did you think of the film? Because I've talked about it for years. We've tried to watch it once before, and you weren't feeling it, but now you sat through the whole thing, and you seem to have liked it this time. What are your thoughts?
I'm glad I finally watched it.
That's all you gotta say?
Yeah.
She's like, bro, no.
And yeah, like, as I said, like, it's kind of like a weird thing to talk about because it's, like, real stuff. Like, it'd be different if it was, like, an actual film. But, like, I don't know. To me, like, I saw this early on in film school, like, when I was, like, unsure of, like, what I wanted to do. And then after seeing this, I was like, all right, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make films. So, and, like, when I'm in film school and stuff, like, they make you watch, like, Jaws and, like, stupid shit like that. Well, not that Jaws is stupid, but, like, this is something that, like, I think that, like, if I were to ever teach, like, a film course, I would show something like this. Something that's, like, more real than... Because, like, people go into film school, they're not going to be making Hollywood films right off the bat. They're going to be making stuff like this.
Yeah.
So I think, for me, it was just, like, very important, and it hit me at a very important time in my life, so...
I could see that completely.
You got anything else to say?
No, I just really liked it a lot. I'm actually probably gonna find it and buy it.
It's kind of rare to get the DVDs. They're on eBay for like $30 or something like that. Like, it's been out of print forever. I did say we were doing a double feature tonight, and I think you may be able to guess what the other one is. given some clues. If my wife would let me over there to get into the drawer of secrecy.
How late is it? We're burning the fucking midnight oil tonight. Oh my god.
In my possession, one of the original Coven tapes.
How much was that, if I can ask?
It was a pretty penny. It's not the most expensive tape in my collection, but I paid a little bit for this. So this is number 1350 out of the 3,000 he was trying to sell.
Wow.
And it's dated from 2000, so this was after the film had come out, but he still hadn't sold the 3,000, I guess. At least I'm hoping this is legit. It's as legit as it gets, so.
I mean, this is probably as legit as you and I would ever see, I assume. If I can open it without, there we go. Man, the crack of a VHS. After watching a last Blockbuster last night, just nice opening a case, like a snap case like this. Well,
Insane. And you saw them taking the picture that was on the cover there, like when he's wearing the coat and they tells him to lose the scarf and stuff like that.
Jesus Christ, this is wild. All right. Well, as I'm burping insanely, let's fucking do this. Let's watch it.
Let's see what they made. Alright, so I'm back, guys. So obviously for me, American Movie is a 5-star film on Letterboxd. Miles, the poser, of course, only gave it 4.5 stars. Of course, he is an absolute poser, doesn't understand anything. And now we're going to talk about Coven. So Coven is the next film that we watched, obviously, on my VHS, on one of my, hopefully, real, authentic Coven VHSs that Mark Borchardt was trying to sell way back in the day. That's what we watched it on. Coven, it says on Letterboxd officially released in 2000, but we saw the premiere was significantly earlier than that. The description of Coven on Letterboxd is an alcohol/drug abuser re-examines his life until he nearly dies from an overdose. Then a friend convinces him to join a self-help group, which turns out to be demonic. A coven, because coven sounds too much like oven, man. That just doesn't work. Coven, I had seen a few times before, but I haven't really watched it that much. I'll give you the descriptions on IMDb as well. There's only one. That previous one was from Letterboxd. Actually, their descriptions are exactly the same. After now pulling up IMDb, it's the same exact thing as on Letterboxd. That is just wonderful. But Coven, I had seen it a few times, but this was my first time really trying to analyze it and take it in. I still don't really know what to make of the film. You're going to hear my thoughts about the film in a second. That were my first impressions of it. But it seems very Stephen King inspired by nature, right? It's about an alcoholic writer battling his inner demons. It's very Stephen King-esque. And I'm just gonna let the film speak for itself. If you're able to get a copy of American Movie on DVD, it is in the bonus features. Other than that, you can get a VHS copy of it still today through Mark. I'm not sure how much they cost. Probably cheaper than the original copy of mine, obviously. But you can still get it on VHS. I think you might be able to rent it online. From somewhere, and I know people upload it to YouTube all the time and it gets taken down and stuff like that. I do recommend supporting the official release however you can, whether it be through Mark's website or renting it online. So that's the way I recommend it. We're gonna watch the film right now, so enjoy our thoughts about the film, and then I'll see you on the other side. What did you just say before we started recording this? What did this make you want to do?
Watch my stuff that's actually online and see what's left, like trailers and short films and stuff that I've worked on, because kind of brought me back. I'm about 3 months shy from my 10-year of graduating college, which I went to school for special effects makeup, but I worked on about, 10, a dozen different, maybe more than that, to be honest, like trailers, short films, couple features, things like that. And it's just been a while since I've really thought about any of them. I had just as many features get canned. Unfortunately, moving to Ohio from Pennsylvania kind of fucked all my stuff up, because I moved to Ohio. I had 5 projects in the works, and one of them was in Pennsylvania. It was me 3 short films, and the guy had a bit of a reputation, a good reputation, and he was also a really good photographer, and he signed an exclusive photography deal. He couldn't do any of his own work for like 5 years. And I started some pre-production stuff for it, and the first one was a Bloody Mary short, which would have been probably really simple, but still for the sake of just urban legends and stuff like that, it would have been fun, just something to do.
Right,
I mean,
yeah.
But that was the one we had started getting stuff prepped for, and then, that fell through. There was a ghost film that I was supposed to do, and they wanted to go to do in Cleveland, actually. They decided to do CG and to minimize the effects, so that fell through. You and I attempted to work on, this was not much later, but a little later, a couple years later, a year later, something like that, a couple years after I got back to Ohio, do that thing for Kent State.
Oh, yeah.
Which I still haven't seen. I need to see that. And trying to work with them and give them literally the most, just try to give them a deal and come out and just be like, hey, I think you should do this, you should do that. They couldn't even pay my kit fee or give me free food for the day. So no offense, Kent State, beautiful campus, but I couldn't do that. But probably had 6 to 8 things, kind of maybe even almost 10. When I have scripts on my computer, I still have scripts and I have tons of stuff that never got made that I was supposed to be a part of. But it's kind of where I've slowed down, where it's been 3 years now since I've worked on anything, and that's the longest I've gone since school. But
It's been around that long for me too, maybe a little longer, 4 years.
As you know, independent filmmaking, man, it can be very frustrating. Like I just said, 8 to 10 different things that I had lined up.
Yeah.
Paid gigs. These were this was a little different than what we're talking about in this. I had money invested. I was getting this much an hour or a day rate. A little bit more professional. So when you start to lose these gigs, it's like money. It was all side money, and it starts to add up.
Yeah.
Anyways,
very unlike Coven, which we just watched. Very interesting film. We talked about what you've been talking about, projects you've worked on, stuff that I've worked on. You still haven't seen my feature film,
I need to see it.
We'll have to do. When you watch my feature film, you'll notice some elements from Coven in it. I'll say
really?
that. Yes.
Okay.
It was an influence on the film slightly. I think that as far as indie art house films go, and then seeing the film that we had just previously watched, an American movie, seeing how they were able to do it, on one hand, it's it took you 3-4 years to make that, but then on the other hand, you sort of see all the heart that was put into it, I guess. Yeah, I don't know.
I thought it was, honestly, that was I don't know what I expected, because I've seen a lot of people that look like they have no business directing anything, and then you watch it and it's just so quirky or so whatever. But to be honest, he had for whatever he was going for, which I kind of know he was going for, he had a pretty good vision. Some of his shots were
You brought it up a couple times, the shot of the church in the background and stuff
and
that.
I liked that they kept referencing that. I thought that was actually very smart, where they could go back to that and it would kind of hang on this ominous scene, and it really helped that the whole film was in black and white, because some of the scenes really
60 millimeter black and white reversal, man,
really helped it. But honestly, even the acting compared to some shit that I watched, especially some shit I've seen people put $1 million, $2 million into, the acting in this really wasn't no part of that Coven. I hate saying Coven. I want to say Coven so bad, but but Coven was it was pretty fucking good, to be honest. I mean, he definitely has a little bit of an eye for filmmaking. It's kind of like I was watching it and it was kind of like unfortunate. I was like, man, I felt like this guy could have maybe just done a bunch of indie features, like even just on this level, because there were people in like the 70s, 80s, and 90s that made 5, 6, 7 indie short films and kind of have like a history. I'm not saying he would have had a successful career, but he might have been more of like, even more of like a cult legend. Like he could have like, you know, had a fan base, because I think he definitely has an eye for at least shooting and getting the scenes he wants. Like I thought it was pretty good. I mean, like, for what it was, I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, like the only thing about it that's like noticeable is like you can tell it was shot like over a very long period of time.
Yes.
Because like just with him in general, like the mullets changed in lengths. Like,
They did,
like,
yes,
yeah,
they
like,
did. And it's weird because his dialogue and his acting and some of it was like, he was very straight and very like good, and like the lines came out clean. And then there were just a couple scenes that were like, almost felt like he was spoofing himself, or it was like he was about to laugh during it, and then he didn't. Like the kitchen scene and the stuff at the end, like the other actors are very straight, and he's like just saying like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" But he overacts compared to how he is earlier in the film.
right.
Now, I don't know if that's because the documentary crew was also a
there.
big portion of that, so I think maybe he was just dialed up a little bit more than normal, because that was the only thing to me that, like, obviously besides you can see it was shot over time, but like this sticks out like a sore thumb. Like,
right, and like I was telling you, like he made a couple appearances on like Letterman and stuff like that. And like in those interviews, he's talking about like he knows when the cameras are on him, so he knows how to like play to it. Yeah. So the fact that the documentary crew was there when he was shooting those scenes where he's a little bit more over the top, it's not.
He's very
unintentional.
I just call it turned up to 11, you know, as they would say. I mean, he was very extra, some people would say.
Yeah.
I think that's the only thing that I saw that really hurt. The film. And it's right at the end, you know.
And another thing about it is like when you're making a film, you kind of write about what you know, and like I feel like a lot of it is like not even acting in that. A lot of it seemed like real stuff, because like they're in like the group meeting, and then you have the actor Mike Shank, who's telling the story about how he's like dropping acid and like doing this and that. It's like, okay, well, like
he was himself. I feel like he was like, if I'm gonna go to an AA or some kind of, you know, drug rehab group, that was just him telling his own story, or like a story that's similar.
Yeah.
But I know that's where you're going at. I got a little turned up to 11 right there. You know, I'm kind of excited. It actually was really good. Both of these were very like fun and good, and I like getting brought back to time periods like this when I feel like filmmaking was a little more, it still is DIY, but even nowadays I feel like people with the access of YouTube and all these websites and all these documentaries, not this, but like a lot of people, even if they want to go to make an independent film, they've done so much research on how to make a film that they go in with like such an idea of what filmmaking is, or even more of an understanding that like you don't get some of these, like, at least not that I see. I'm probably a little out of touch with it maybe too as we're getting older, but you don't see some of these like raw, crazy like types of people that are just like, I'm gonna go out there, I'm gonna make this shit, like I'm just gonna make something that's wild and like you know, like I just don't see that nowadays.
And nowadays it's just like so much easier, because like as we saw in like the documentary, like they're shooting this like on actual film, so like there is a limit to what they can shoot. Not like now where it's like
splicing it together and like doing all that work.
Not like now where you just dump it onto a hard drive and you can keep shooting and like do this and that. Like it's like, all right, when they're out of film, like they're like that shit's like expensive, you know.
He did when he had that key line where his mom, he was framing the shot, and his mom's running. She shot the camera. He's like, are we rolling or what? And she's like, yeah, we've been rolling. She's like, Mom, we're burning film. Like, you know, like we're like he's like a legit pissed because obviously, you know, he's fucking spending money on the film itself. You know, like, I don't know. This was a really cool experience, and I said when we were off whatever, I just said camera, but it's getting late. Midnight Mocha's sitting here slumped, looking at me with he's very cute right now. I had a Facebook status, like one of the memories, and I was like, yeah, the first thing I ever acted on was 11 years ago. Yesterday.
Yeah.
So it just made me, like, as I thought yesterday, it kind of brought it back. I forgot I even acted in that, and it brought me back, and I was thinking about it. So it's kind of, like, funny to watch a film like this and, like, see the DIY aspect, and, like, I'm just kind of in that, like, zone the past couple days thinking about that stuff. So it's kind of, like, fun to watch this and, you know, kind of recollect on my own stuff.
Yeah, tonight was an interesting experience. I don't know if our conversations really did justice to what we were experiencing while we were watching the two of the films, but it was a good time.
It was a good time. I really appreciate that you brought me in to do this. Probably one of my more favorite experiences from doing one of the podcasts in regards to like being like watching something to do a podcast, because I like a lot of other stuff and I used to watch all different genres. And I still feel like now I do that, but, like, I used to hunt into more, like, faux documentary stuff or indie this or coming-of-age stuff where now I feel like sometimes even talking about being, like, using the word jaded, like, I've seen so much that, like, I'm kind of like, oh, I'm going to watch, like, read about this horror film, I'm going to watch it, or this action film or something, but, like, I don't always go out of the way anymore to find some things or research little niche genres or cult classics like I used to, because I spent legit in college and times before that. I spent like 10 years. Like, I have stacks of film magazines and books and things and going into subgenres. And now I'm kind of just like, I don't have the time to do that as much anymore, even though we have the internet now and stuff like that. But I'm kind of just like, I don't have the energy to do that. So I appreciate when people like talk to me about stuff like this or throw something in front of me and I just get this experience.
Yeah, it would fit right in with Cinema Wasteland, showing Coven there.
Oh, yes. Honestly, even obviously like American movie, like I feel like it'd probably have a really good audience there, to be honest, because it's very interesting and it's very, I feel like this with a crowd where everyone's just having a good time and, you know, I feel like it's also, you talk about being Midwestern, like, I feel like this is just very relatable for probably a lot of the age groups, even older than you. Like, I feel like you would be on kind of like the end of that where you would think this is funny and be relatable. Like, I legit have memories as a kid of this is what things looked like.
Right, well, my wife had said during the film, because she was watching American Movie with us, the scene where, like, Mark's, like, laying in bed, she was just like, that is your, like, bedroom at your parents' house. Like, the wood paneling walls, like, the fake wood, and, like, all that stuff. Like, it's just, like, and, like, right now, like, in Ohio, like, a lot of the houses are, like, still, like, older, so, like, a lot of this stuff, like, looks the way that they look in the film.
Yeah. Maybe not quite to this degree. This is definitely this Milwaukee, this Wisconsin vibe is, like, it's just like when I go up to Michigan. I talked about family earlier in this. I go up to Michigan and I feel like I'm going back 20 years.
Yeah.
My uncles work in boat factories. Like, they do things like it seems like it's still the, and when I think I'm talking about, like, oh, the 80s, I'm like, oh, fuck, well, the 80s is 30 to 40 years ago. Like, it's like, but like something about the northern Midwest, it's
Northwestern, man.
It's the Northwestern. It's still a little behind. It's not, I don't know. I've never been to Milwaukee, but I'm assuming from Michigan and Indiana and some of the places I've been, maybe it's a little behind still like that. If not, hey, I'm sorry to anyone that lives in Wisconsin. I think it's the best thing of all time. I hear a lot of people really like it, but
he's still there. He's still there in Menominee Falls, and Wisconsin, doing his thing. Still waiting on Coven 2. You had asked, like, what he had done, like, since then. There was an episode of Family Guy he was on, like, as himself.
Jesus Christ.
It was, like, right after the film had come out, or whatever, American movie.
So, like, early Family Guy.
Yeah. Like, there's literally a scene where, like, he comes out of the closet, it's like, oh, do we get that shot? What do you think, Mike? Like, Mike's in it, too, like, in the episode of Family Guy.
Oh, wow. I bet you I've seen it and just had no idea.
Probably, I'll show you it sometime. And then, like, he was in, like, a couple films, like, as an actor, because obviously he's a cult, like, icon now.
Yeah.
But still hasn't gotten, like, the mainstream, like, success or anything. As I said, we're waiting for Coven 2, waiting for Northwestern. There was this film he was supposed to be working on called, like, Scare Me, which had been, like, in development for, like, 10, 15 years.
Jesus
and still
Christ.
hasn't seen that. He released a UFO documentary a couple years ago.
We need to watch that.
Oh, I have it. Oh, I have it. I've reviewed it on the show before. It's called the Dundee Project. It's like this alien like convention that they do like in the Midwest. It's called like UFO Days, where a bunch of people go out like around this river and just like wait for aliens. It's like once a year, every year, and he just went and like documented the experience.
There was one. So I went to school in Southern. I know we're gonna wrap this up. It is getting late. In, southwestern PA, and there was a town 25 minutes east of where I lived, and it was a little bit bigger of a town, and they had a UFO convention every year, and I always wanted to go, and I'm very curious. Like, it's supposed to actually be, like, a really good one, and they had cryptid shit, and I kind of want to, like, look it up one day and just see if it's still there.
We can go.
Maybe we should make it. It'd be probably like because we're not as far north as Beulah, so maybe it would still only be like a 3-hour drive from here. But
I'd be down, yeah.
Maybe get Dynamite Jared, get a hotel, get everyone for the weekend, like for a day, and then probably pass by the old school, show you the old Tom Savini stomping grounds.
They'll still be doing push-ups outside the front door.
Jesus Christ, I hope not. Probably, though. I know that school's dying, though. I mean, Face Off kind of was like a blessing and a curse for that show because it got more... There was already interest, but it got more interest. But then they based the whole school. Like, I guess they redid, like, certain wings being like, oh, so-and-so's on Face Off, so-and-so's on Face Off. The only thing with Face Off is... it doesn't, it can lead places, it does lead places for some people, but also, like, that's 1-2 month gig. Like, it's not like, that's not your career, like, if you're going to go to be on Face Off, like, they start gearing it towards, like, a fad that was, like, dying as they did that. And now Face Off's done and they have all these wings too, like, I guess they're not drawing in the same amount of people they used to, so.
Right.
I don't know if that, hopefully the school's not dying, but I don't know, I haven't heard anything too good about it in a while.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty much it for this time, you guys. I don't know what else to say about Coven. We're gonna have to do an episode where we watch all of our stuff, and talk about it, and got some underrated films coming up, maybe at some point in the future, some more, and Random Horror Thoughts was a fun episode. We got to do some more of those.
Probably do at least, maybe I'll write down a couple ideas. Probably at least do maybe like 2 more of those episodes in the future, in the upcoming months. And a couple underrated films too. Underrated, podcasts, but I think that would bring us up to another 4 or 5 decent podcasts.
Pretty much, yeah.
So...
Cool. Well, yeah, it was great having you on, as always.
Thank you. And I went to work today, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between, and I'm ready for bed. Mocha, if you can hear Midnight Mocha, my dog, he's snoring next to us. So, I mean, I think I got about an hour left, and that's where I'm going to be at, so.
Yeah. Well, that's about it, you guys. Thanks for listening. Make sure you're subscribing wherever you're listening to the show. Follow Midnight Miles over on Instagram. Give him a follow. He'll keep you guys updated with his like bi-monthly photo dumps on what's going on. You're like me, like we barely post on Instagram except for our stories, but it's fine.
And pretty much once, twice a month of that. Yeah, I'd pretty much. It's just, to me, it's so much easier because it's like, hey, these are the only photos I've taken in 2 weeks to a month that I care about. That last photo dump was 2.5, 3 months worth.
I know the picture of me at Mahal's was like forever ago.
that was.
You got Oktoberfest photos in there.
Yeah, that was beginning of September. So I mean, yeah, it just, is what it is, right?
Yep. Well, we will see you guys back here at some point for another episode of the House of Horror. I don't know when this is coming out. This might be a good Thanksgiving episode. It was Thanksgiving in the film at one point.
It was.
This will probably come out the week of Thanksgiving. So, hope you guys all have a good holiday, and we will see you next time. Stay spooky, everyone. All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and ghouls, that is going to do it for this year of Buddy's House of Horror podcast. I'm going to see you guys in 2022 with some new episodes, and we'll take a little season break again to get ready for October, where again I'm going to be doing tons of related horror content over on my YouTube channel and Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that good stuff. But for now, this is going to be it for the year. I will see you guys in January. I hope all of you guys have a great holiday season, no matter what you celebrate. And I hope you find a way to bring horror and the spooky season into all your holidays in some small way, whether it be a dark, scary ornament on your tree or something like that, or watching a Christmas horror film, or anything you guys do. Have a great new year. Just take care of yourselves, take care of others. And yeah, I will see you guys in 2022. So without further ado, I'm going to sign off. Take care and stay spooky, everyone. Have a great new year.